Pros and cons of an LLC. That's the topic for today's episode, and without further ado, let's dive in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. For those who are tuning in for the first time, this is your channel for real estate education. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of LLCs. Now, I know I've created a couple of episodes in the past talking about how wonderful they are and the great things and all of the good things that you can actually do with it. But just like everything, it can't be all perfect. It can't be all right. So today I wanted to sort of like do a comparison and to give you a contrast so you can actually get the full-blown picture of what is it that an LLC can do and what is it that it entails or that it's needed from your end in order to maintain it. So let's just go into the board, right? And so we're going to create a list of, pros and cons. And in terms of cons, you already know all about it, right? And for those who are actually tuning in for the very first time and have never seen anything that I've created on LLCs, I'm going to leave a link or a bunch of links down in the description box below. So make sure you check those out so you can get the background information about this. But let's just bear with me for this one video right here. And yes, in terms of cons, you get, asset protection, and you have tax savings, right? And you can also build business credit, right? Now, in terms of cons, what is it that you typically don't hear about people talking in LLCs, right? One is costly. So you have what they call the formation fees, right? And that can actually varies by state. What are formation fees? Well, those are the fees you have to pay the state to file it. Those are the fees you're gonna have to pay your CPA or your attorney in order to create the LLC in the state. And depending on the state, of course, that you're doing business, it can range somewhere between $50 all the way to $2,000. So, if it's a one-time deal, it doesn't sound like it's too bad because yes, you're getting access to all of these benefits right here, asset protection, savings, business credit. But imagine if you had a big portfolio, like 4, 5, 6, 7 properties. Now you're gonna have to do the math, right? Is it in the state where you will typically need $2,000 for the formation, or is it something as simple as $50? You don't know that, right? So it all depends, and you're gonna have to do the research and just simply shop around and talk to different real estate attorneys, different CPAs to sort of like figure out how much is it going to cost you to create one in your state. Now, once you have that form, you're going to have to renew it every year, right? Because it's the cost of doing business. You're going to have to renew everything just like you would do with a professional certification, and how you have to take continuing educations in order to maintain that certificate so you can stay up to date with all the rules and regulations. It's pretty similar here because think of it this way. There are countless of LLCs that are formed every day and in each one of the states. So the only way for the states to know how many are actually quote unquote active and in business is by receiving the filing fees or the renewal fees. And if they don't get that, then they just simply think that, okay, well, this LLC is just simply out of commission, is out of business, is no longer being used. So you have the formation fees, and then you have the renewal fees, like I said, right? And the renewal fees are pretty similar. It can range somewhere between $50, I will say maybe $400. I'm not entirely sure. You're gonna have to check with your real estate attorney or your CPA. And in terms of renewals, it's not just simply the renewal of the LLC itself, but there's also something that's called a registered agent. And for those who don't know what a registered agent means, it's just simply a office or a address that you rent out from any of the legal offices so that you can use it as a business address for your LLC. That's how a lot of people manage to invest out of state. So let's say, for example, if you're someone who lives in New York City or New York State, and then all of a sudden you want to invest in Nevada, you will not be able to just simply go all the way over there and have an LLC in Nevada. You will need an office, you will need an actual address over there, and that's typically the registered agent, because of course you're not going to use the address of your property because you don't want your tenant having access to that information. So what they do is that a lot of the attorney offices, they give you access to a registered fee, and those are usually over $100 depending on who you're working with. So that's also another cost that you're going to have to factor in each of the renewals. So it's the fee to renew your LLC and then the fee to renew that registered agent. So imagine if you have, again, 4 or 5 different properties and each of them are in different LLCs, then this is something that you will need to take into account. Then the next thing that you will need to consider when having an LLC, it's everything administrative that comes with it, right? And with administrative, I'm talking, let's say, accounting stuff. I mean, it's annoying enough to keep track of all of your expenses for your personal taxes. Imagine having to do that 4, 5, 6, 7 times for your LLCs, because you need to keep those receipts for the business expenses, right? So you have taxes, you know, receipts, sort of like QuickBooks, and anything that you will need to give your CPA or your accountant. Then you'll also have to keep on top of meeting minutes. And for those who are not familiar with the concept of meeting minutes, that just simply means a record that you create to sort of like demonstrate that a meeting or this decision was actually taken place, because hey, it's in business, you have members, so the decisions, they have to be recorded. The meeting minutes are not necessary, but it's for best practices. I do it for all of my LLCs because I expect the IRS to see that I'm running my LLCs, my rentals, like a business. And it also shows that you are doing things properly for when you go and apply for a mortgage, a business mortgage, that they're gonna request to see all of the paperwork. What is it that you have in place? Have you had any meetings with your members? Have anyone voted for a decision to go forward and stuff like that? So that's something you will have to need to maintain. And if you have 4, 5, 6 LLCs, that's going to be a lot of meeting minutes that you're going to have to take place. And another thing I wanted to talk about are interest rates. Not necessarily a bad thing, because you actually get more access to capital when you apply for a mortgage using an LLC, because it's based on the income potential of the property. But one of the downsides of using an LLC to apply for a mortgage is that the interest rates are typically higher than the ones you will get under your personal, under your FICO, under your name. Because hey, if you're running a business, the expectation is that you are making money at this point, and therefore you should be willing to absorb the cost or deal with the cost of doing business, which in this case it translates to high interest rates. Not necessarily a down thing. Again, it's just the cost of doing business, right? You want more access to credit. You want $1 million in a mortgage as opposed to $200,000. Then you have to be willing to pay for the high cost of interest rates. So that's in a nutshell what I have for you. Again, the LLCs are great to have, but these are some of the things that you're going to have to keep into consideration, and some of the maintenance items that you're going to need to stay on top of if you choose to go to the LLC route. So in essence, it's all about having options and understanding what the pros and cons is, and how do you make an informed decision. Now that you know about the pros and cons, I wanted to take a moment to elaborate a little bit on the meeting minutes, because I know I've never covered this before, and I don't think anyone has ever talked about it in other videos and social media. So I want to elaborate a little bit more on that. So meeting minutes are basically kind of like a record of the meetings that you host every time you meet with the members of your LLC. So think of it as the courthouses, not entirely like a courthouse, but I forgot what's the name of, you know, like the lady or the guy sitting on the side, and then every time talks about something, there's a person right there who's taking notes and transcripts and stuff like that. So meeting minutes sort of like work the same way. Now, they are not mandatory, but they are necessary for good practice. And it actually shows the IRS and shows any lenders that come your way that you are in fact managing your LLCs like they are an actual business. It's not just a facade for asset protection, but you actually intend to use that for scalability. You want to get access to more funds, you want to be treated like a businessman or a businesswoman, and in this case it's necessary for you to have that. Again, it's not mandatory, but I do it for all my LLCs, and you will have to have at least one meeting minute record for the year. You can do as many as you want, and it, in essence, what it does is just it records all the decisions that were made. So for example, I've had meeting minutes to record reimbursements, right? Or maybe any approvals for trips that I have taken to Alabama just to check on my properties. Not necessarily that I go there before buying anything, but if I'm, let's say, going down there anyways, or maybe I'm bypassing it to go down to South America, sometimes I choose to make a stop in Alabama, and I host a meeting, quote unquote, to sort of like approve that trip, so to speak, right? Approve trip. I also have meeting minutes to sort of like add a new member. So for example, in one of my investments in Florida, when we decided to do things together, what I did is that I hosted a meeting to add a new member. So you can make anything you want, or you can record anything you want. And in essence, what it does is that you're just gonna have a piece of paper, a Word document, computer, if possible, and you're just simply gonna talk about the date, right? You need to record the date that this meeting happened, and the location, right? And then the time. And then as part of the body of those meeting minutes, you're gonna talk about, let's say, issue, and then resolution. What was the solution that you found? So for example, the issue is we need budget to take a trip down to Alabama to check on the properties. And then the resolution is trip approved by this member and this member. Everyone signed, and the meeting ended at whatever amount of time. It's just very simple. It's nothing over too complicated. You can do it in Microsoft Word. You can actually do it in Google Docs or whatever tool you have available. You can even do it in paper, handwritten, although I don't recommend it, but my belief is that, hey, it is a record. I mean, there have been cases that have been worn with a napkin in court, so you don't have to be overly fancy, but ideally you want to make it look professional at the same time. So in Google Docs, they don't cost you anything. All you got to do is just to simply create a Gmail account with them, and you're going to have access to the drive, and it's going to give you the tool. You're going to have accessibility to that tool right away. But in the event that you don't know what that is, I'm just simply going to leave you a link down below so you can actually access it. Or if you have Microsoft Word, what you're going to do is just to go in and type this into Microsoft Word, and then get a copy, print it out, and keep it as part of your record. So that's in essence what it is. Pros and cons. What's important is that you have the necessary information, and if you're still going to pursue having an LLC, then you know what kind of administrative works, the amount of fees that comes with it, and whether you are willing or disciplined enough in order to keep up with it. I mean, if you come to think of it, it's sort of like the cost of doing business. You're getting great asset protection. You're getting access to additional funding, credit, tax benefits and stuff like that. But something's gonna have to give, right? So this, in essence, is sort of like, hey, it's standard business practice anyways. If you have a business, you would like to have records of something or big decisions that have been made. And this is one way to actually go about it. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. And as usual, do not forget to hit the like or the subscribe button. And if you know of somebody who you think is going to find this information beneficial, feel free to share the love and the link of the video their way. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.